to Afghanistan Dialogues. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. For the last 30 days, the focus of the world has been on Afghanistan. A lot has happened, a lot has been said by experts, by commentators, by anchors, by reporters. But what about those who are directly affected by the Afghan story, the people of Afghanistan who've become the story here? Who is talking to them? Over the next few days, we'll be showcasing some of the most prominent voices from Afghanistan. We will discuss on a wide range of issues, from women's rights to the role of Pakistan, the options before India, the refugee crisis, and what they call Taliban 2.0. Have they really evolved? Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you to this WION special series, Afghanistan Dialogues. Tonight, we talk about and we talk to the women of Afghanistan, their rights, their futures, their expectations. We have named this session after our campaign, #SaveAfghanWomen. Let me introduce my guests to you. We have with us Mehbooba Siraj joining us from Kabul. She is the president of the board of Afghan Women's Network. She was in exile for 25 years in the United States before she returned to her country in 2003, and we'll ask her about that story. Our next guest is Zarifa Ghaffari. She is the former mayor of Maidan Sheher, which is the capital of the province of Wardak. At 26, Ghaffari became the youngest woman to be appointed mayor. She recently escaped the Taliban's tyranny. She's currently in exile in Germany, and that's where she's joining us from. From Maryland in the United States is Nadia Hashemi. She's a member of the U.S. Afghan Women's Council. She's also a best-selling novelist. Her books focus on themes of forced migration, poverty and misogyny. And joining us from Washington, D.C. is Mariam Wardak, my colleague at WION. She hosts the weekly show South Asia Diary. She's also the founder of Her Afghanistan. Mariam has served as a strategic communication and international relations advisor to the National Security Advisor of Afghanistan. A very warm welcome to all of you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mehbooba Siraj, my first question is to you. Do you feel safe in Kabul right now, and how has life changed for you and for other women in Afghanistan around you in the last 2 weeks?
The life has changed drastically for every single woman and every single Afghan for the past 13, 14 days that the Taliban have been in Afghanistan. It has changed 180 degrees in every sense of the word. As far as the safety is concerned, I don't know what to say about that. It's not a question of, so far I'm safe. Whether I feel safe and I'm guaranteed safety, no, that is something that is not. But so far I am safe. So I'm taking every day for what it is, and just waiting for the next day to see how that comes. I'm just taking it day by day. But life has changed very much for all of us in this country.
You're very brave. It's giving me goosebumps as I listen to you. Zarifa Ghaffari, you recently left Afghanistan and your journey was documented by the world media. You're among the few Afghan women who've managed to escape the Taliban's tyranny. Tell me what forced you to leave your home, and what do you feel about your future?
Thank you. Actually, what made me to leave Afghanistan, it has always two reasons. One, it was my family. I lost my dad for my plans, for my life, for what I am going for. And I didn't want anyone else to lose them, one of my family. So I didn't want one of my family to pay price for what I am planning and I am doing on the ground. And secondly, it was my voice, which I wasn't able to raise it there. And it was about Taliban threats, and they were searching for me. They had been to my house, they searched my house, and they were searching me to my friends' houses, to my relatives. And they were all and the locations, when I was changing every day, it was coming to an end every day. So I had to, to save a voice with Taliban are struggling to silence it since years and years. I had to choose the hardest way that I was never planning, and it was never a decision for me. It was very painful, very hard, but I had to.
Nadia Hashimi, your parents were raised in Afghanistan in the 1950s, and things were different then. From what I've read, it was a different world. Afghan women were free to go out wearing skirts, bell-bottoms. They lived without fear. Today, they're hidden behind veils and bound by draconian rules. What do you think and what do you feel when you hear stories of women being burnt because of quote-unquote bad cooking or being killed for not wearing a burqa?
I think from what I'm hearing, the women of Afghanistan, and I really see it more of my duty to amplify their voices and the priorities that I've heard from them, not my own, what I would wish for them. I don't really hear people complaining immediately about the burqa. I think that really what women have expressed to me and in circles that I've been in is really their concerns about their education, about their livelihoods, about their ability to live in peace and with some really basic human rights. And so I think that we are entering a time where it's going to be more and more important, not, as you've named this show, Save Afghan Women. I don't think that's really what we're here to do, with all due respect. I think that this is a moment where it's absolutely critical to stand with Afghan women, as you heard in so many protests in different parts of the country yesterday.
Indeed, and I'll come to that in a bit, this whole question of, say, how much can we do and what should we be doing? Mariam Wardak, you work very closely with the women of Afghanistan, and in the past, you've told me how talented, how ambitious some of these young women are and how much more they want from their life. With the Taliban taking over, what has changed for them and what have they been telling you recently?
So, as you know, I have 5,000 members in 24 provinces that I am in touch with on a daily basis. My executive director is on the ground right now, sending videos that I upload on my social media page and also on the organization's page, explaining what she is doing on a regular basis. Of course, there's a huge shift in how people are feeling, but what their experiences is very different than what they're feeling. There are different parts of Kabul, but then there's a world outside of Kabul. Now, the major shift hasn't impacted that much outside of Kabul, because outside of Kabul, it tends to be a very conservative area, and women do not have that much freedom of mobility. Yes, and for certain urban areas such as Kandahar and Jalalabad and Mazar and Herat, they were able to mobilize as much, but not without either a guard, driver, brother, or father around. Now, when you come to Kabul, because it was a very foreign influence city, there was much more freedom. That has changed dramatically. When my members that work within the government organizations, they've told me, some of them, that I have a few members working at the Ministry of Public Health who've returned to work, and they have not seen any sort of harassment or discrimination. However, the females that work in the public sector within the media, they've been asked not to return to work. However, their compensation has continued. Now, there's also a difference within the society. In Kandahar, my members who work at the bank, the owner of the bank asked them to return home because they're afraid of how the Taliban will interact with them. So the society is also changing versus what's happening within the Taliban. Now, a reference to what you made also that I would like to explain to your viewers is the pictures that we see of women in Kabul in the 1950s wearing skirts. I want to also mention that burqa was also prominent. Burqa is not a religious aspect, and it's completely wrong if the Taliban continue to try to enforce that. It's actually a cultural aspect. And it was the skirts also that you see, the pants, were very rarely outside of Kabul. So Kabul has been kind of disconnected from Afghanistan since it has become the capital because of the kind of influence it had.
Right, and I think this may be an oversimplistic explanation. When we say the burqa, we're basically talking about a symbol of not allowing the woman to make the choice as to what she wants for herself. That's what I meant, and that was my limited point. Mehbooba Siraj, you were in exile in the US the last time the Taliban ruled Afghanistan, and I'm sure you have memories from that time. What did the life of an ordinary Afghan woman look like under the Taliban back in the 90s, and do you fear a return to those days?
No, I wasn't in Afghanistan at the time of the Taliban. I left Afghanistan in 1978 when the Russians, the communist section. So I haven't been in Afghanistan those days, but of course, I kept reading about it, getting the news, and getting to know what was going on in Afghanistan. But I wasn't here. But this time, however, I would like to be here. And one of my my decisions is that I really would like to see this thing through. I want to see what is going to be happening, because one way or another we are waiting for a lot of huge changes. And if I'm alive and if they let me live, I would like to be here and just watch it and see what is happening. Because Afghanistan, during the time of the two presidents that we had and whatever was happening before, it was good for a bunch of people, but it was not good for the whole of Afghanistan. That's one thing for sure. Not everybody in Afghanistan was making such a big bucks, and not everybody in Afghanistan was having such a good life. There was a lot of hunger, there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of misery in this country that nobody at that time really paid any attention. We had one of the most corrupt governments on the face of the earth. And a whole lot of the things that happened at the airport this time, it was also because of corruption. Nobody would like to believe that, but it's a fact. And these are all of the things that happened. And it happened because we did not have a very good system, very good government. And the world, of course, played a huge role by enabling everybody to grab and grab and grab and grab and grab more. So right now, I don't know what is going to happen. This time we might even all die, all of us die from hunger or lack of access to everything. Or maybe not. It all depends how the world is going to look at us. Are they going to be really standing, behind the Afghan people and try to help the Afghan men and women, or they are not? They have other plans. Because also don't forget one thing else. We have some nasty neighbors around us. Afghanistan is very unlucky as far as that's concerned. It's a small, tiny country full of the most amazing minerals under its earth, but some of the nastiest neighbors on the face of the earth. So, so this is something these are the things that we are facing, and this is our lives right now. And we just want to know what we are going to be doing. And as far as the name of your show, one of the ladies mentioned that. I really would like the show to be named, Standing with the Women of Afghanistan, instead of saving us, or whatever the word is, because the reality is that, if the women of Afghanistan don't save themselves, nobody is going to save the women of Afghanistan. That's also for sure. And one other thing that I want to say is the fact that I'm so grateful to all the women of the world. I mean, this is the kind of a solidarity that I was praying and hoping to see from everywhere in the world. As far as the government are concerned, I have nothing to say about them, and I really don't care for them.
Very, very well put. Zarifa Ghaffari, you have survived assassination attempts. Your father was killed by the Taliban, and you believe it's because the Taliban did not like the idea of a woman mayor. They did not like the sight of you in office. That's what you've been quoted as saying in the past. The same group today says that women officials will be allowed to return to work. Do you believe them when they say this? Should the world trust the Taliban?
First of all, I have to say that exactly if the Taliban their words are speaking their actions, then how many women are back to their offices? We have nothing. The reality in their action is still till the date in Afghanistan. And more important, they are searching for policewomen. They're searching for those women who are working in this defense ministry, and all those women who were at least having a voice, like maybe against them, or maybe a voice for the welfare of Afghanistan and their country. So now it's about their words never speaks their action till the date. But yeah, there is a hope. I think we need to be a little bit positive with some cases on the ground and realities on the ground. Taliban are going to, the most important is the Taliban are going to seek, and they're looking for international legitimacy and recognition. And the international community have some red lines, and one of that is women's rights. And I am I'm so hopeful that we can work on that, and we can start talking to them, to Taliban or maybe whatever, to have a women's rights and their basic rights on the ground and as reality. And more important, I'm hopeful I can return my home back so safely as soon as they're ready to respect and to give us our basic rights. And now I think it's possible rather than any time else, because they're also looking for legitimacy internationally. So it will be I'm hopeful for that, and I think we can make it, especially when it's about women of Afghanistan, as Ms. Saraj and Mariam told on their words. It's about not saving women of Afghanistan. It's just what we need is just solidarity and standing by our sides for our basic rights, not the right to wearing burqa or not burqa. It's important to, is Taliban and their leadership ready to give me the right of education, to give me the right of work and being in society. So whenever we got this, I think we are able to manage whatever else possible, next steps for women in the country.
Right. Nadia Hashimi, the Taliban are talking about education, though they say co-education will not be allowed. I'm not sure how many girls-only schools and colleges exist in the country. So some experts I spoke to earlier said that this may be their way of keeping girls away from schools. Do you believe that the Taliban understand the concept of women's rights?
I believe that the Taliban understand how important it is to the world. And I believe that they're looking at it as part of the package, as part of the facade that they've been presenting to the world. People have pressed them again and again during these previous 2 years of talks that they've been having outside of the country. They have been asked repeatedly to articulate specifically what they will allow in terms of women's rights. And even that is a stretch. I mean, that we're asking them what they would allow. And again, they hedge, and they have provided, the same language that says only what is within Islamic law. Their version of Islamic law was very evident and apparent in 96 to 01. It was very brutal. It's very misogynistic. I think that they understand now that the world is paying attention and will probably be inflamed by that type of rolling out of a brutal, oppressive regime again. But what they actually believe in, I think, is a matter just of survival. I think they understand that they need to allow some things to the outside world to appease people. I think they also understand that women have achieved very much. And one of the things that the Taliban need, if they're actually going to govern this country now that they've taken over, is that they need capable people. They are not a regime that has actually provided governance, that has provided infrastructure, that has built things. And so what are they going to need? They're going to actually need the talent of the people of Afghanistan. And most specifically in Kabul and in other cities where women have risen through the ranks of education, have become professionals. These are the people who can actually rebuild the country and continue to make progress if they are allowed to do so. And I would wonder if there's a sliver of the Taliban that understands that what they're not capable of, the Afghan women are.
Indeed. Mariam, Zarifa just spoke about setting a red line, that women's rights are non-negotiable. But we're already hearing stories of young girls being kidnapped, being forced to marry the Taliban, reports of women being hidden in coffins and sent to neighboring countries as sex slaves. These are just reports that we get. Did the world not see this coming? And do you believe that the world is going to do enough to stop it? Or will they let the rights of Afghan women be collateral damage in this deal setting with the Taliban?
A phenomenal question, Palki, because this is actually the most important. The fact that all of us had watched the United States engage with the Taliban for the past several years, and other countries engage even in longer duration, and nobody rose their voices besides Mahbouba Siraj, who's on this panel, is quite concerning. Because the fact that we are all rising to talk about how bullying the Taliban is, we need to discuss about who enabled the Taliban to come into power. And one of the main actors in this is the United States. Organizations like Afghan American foundations, associations, organizations, none of them have stood up to say anything in the past 2 years and now are trying to bring attention to Afghanistan. The question is, what is the solution moving forward? I would like to mention, as one of the panelists said, from 96 to 01, let's reflect before 96. During the Civil War, Afghan women did not attend to schools or universities. Why? Because there was rape, theft, kidnappings, all that you're mentioning right now, even at that time during the Mujahideen era. And let's also talk about the brain drain. There was a huge brain drain around the Soviet invasion. And now, right now, the same thing is taking place. So all of these educated young women like we have, like Zarifa, have left the country. The question is, who's going to run this country? How are we going to show visibility to be able to see the tolerance of the Taliban? One of my main criticism of all of the Afghan American activists is stop spreading fear and push for more morale to boost. Like Mahbouba Siraj, for God's sakes, what a remarkable woman, staying in Afghanistan during the most difficult time and not returning anywhere. Why? Because she wants to push the tolerance. She wants to see how far the Afghan Taliban will accept her. And that's what we need to empower. We should not spread any more fear. And the voice saving or standing with Afghan women, none of that matters. The point is that everyone is there to help the Afghan women, and we need that assistance. It's not a savior complex. It's nothing else. It's about standing at a time where devastation is present. We are all distraught. But the women on the ground in Afghanistan don't need to be concerned with any more fear. They need to come out. My concern here, when I speak to my members all the time, is what they're seeing on social media is what's discouraging them to step outside. Another thing that you mentioned was the co-education is not allowed. Your members, everybody who's watching this should understand that there is no co-education up until high school. Everyone is segregated. Now, from age, I think, 10 onwards. I'm sure Mahbouba can give more details about that. And majority of the universities that were private were also segregated. Now, it does not matter if they're segregated or not. It's about allowing them to go. And when they do allow, we need to constantly watch what's happening. When the society gets educated, modernization comes into function. It starts to evolve. That's what happens. We need to stop focusing on the bullying aspect and who the boogie monster is, and we need to focus on what we can do and how we can get the ground rolling. Empowering women like Mahbouba Siraj or all my members on the ground in Afghanistan is what's important. And the actors that have brought us in this situation, such as the United States and all the NATO allies, they need to be held responsible for what they allowed to happen today.
Yes, and that's what we say. 14 million women and their future is at stake. And I don't think there are easy choices. I agree with you. Mahbouba Siraj has been very, very courageous in staying back. But I guess everyone has their own compulsions and reasons to stay or leave. Mahbouba Siraj, last question to you here. We're talking about saving Afghan women. You say they don't need saving. I understand the world should look at standing with them, supporting them in whichever way they can. What should the world then be doing? What is it that the women of Afghanistan today want from the world?
The women of Afghanistan today, what they really want from the world is to, make it possible for all of us to get a chance to see who we are really standing next to. Who are the Taliban? How much are they going to do or not do? How much of their words they're going to be keeping or not keeping? So this is very important. But at the same time, to help this country or to help, I don't know the way, because there is a lot of the control is really in their hands still. We don't have a government. We need a government right away. We need our banks to open. We need our airport to be functional. These are the things that we need. That in order for the country to kind of take a breath and say, okay, now we are going to stand up and see what's happening. There is going to be, all the time, the education, for example, the co-education. What co-education? It was always like that. She's absolutely right, Mariam. It's like, well, this is what we are, this is the way it has been in Afghanistan. And what they said, they always, the Taliban turn around and they say, well, it's not allowed in Islam for the men and women to be together. How come in Islam is allowed for the women to stand behind the men in a mosque and do their prayer? How come that is allowed? So it's not allowed for them to be, getting an education in classroom. So if you want to, we can put a curtain or something between, because there are fewer girls than there are boys. So at least, they can hear the teacher's voice, because we don't have that many teachers to spread around all over and separate universities. But at the same time, we have to make it possible for everybody to get education and tell the Taliban that if you don't allow this, you will never be able to rule this country or have a country to rule. Because what is going to happen to this country is going to be split in 5 pieces. So easy. So let's not do that. Let's keep our country together. Let's work with everything. and let's make it possible for us to be able to actually run this country together and see what happens. So if that happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, we are in deep trouble. But the one thing that right now is a big problem is ISIS. So we want to really know whether the Taliban know about this. I mean, that they have ISIS right there, or they don't. If they do, then they should be really doing something about it. Because if they don't, we are going to go to another 20 or 40 years of having wars, killings, and God knows what in this country. So this is the most urgent thing to take care of. And of course, the banks and the government. This is what we need. The rest of the things, slowly, we are going to take care of it. I can promise you that. We really are. We really are. I don't see any reason.
I'm running out of time, Mehbooba Siraj, but your optimism is infectious. And in fact, all of you here, Mehbooba Siraj, Nadia Hashimi, Maria Vardak, Zarifa Ghaffari, you're all proof of how much the women of Afghanistan can achieve. I'm sure you're all role models, and I'm sure this is what the young girls who are looking at an uncertain future aspire to become. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation, joining us for the first episode of Afghanistan Dialogues. More power to each one of you.